Well, before my flight and the crazy snow kicked me out of the state, I was in Denver at the second day of the Defrag Conference. Covered a number of different topics. Today, to me, the theme, at least the theme that I followed, was the DevOps theme. And a number of different specific topics were covered, although even there, within that, there was sort of a container approach to many of the comments and the content. Two specific sessions really stood out. One was one of the keynotes where the speaker talked about platform as a service and the fact that in his mind, platform as a service as an enterprise entity, so an application that an enterprise provides or you acquire from a service provider, is maybe the wrong approach. Instead, you can use the container technologies to implement a much more dynamic environment and yet still get the platform benefits, focusing on code as a packaged application. That's what the container gives you. And still having the flexibility for determining all of the services that need to surround that, whether you use an operating environment like a Kubernetes or just go with a raw Docker service and manage at the container level how the different containers are going to interact. So that was fairly interesting. The other one was also container focused, but took a continuous integration DevOps bent. Said, well, let's look at the DevOps space, and if we use containers as our artifacts, as the things that we are going to be developing, we do develop to a container, and then we use that in our test environment. His focus really was looking at the Jenkins model and using Jenkins to automate the test of an application. The nice thing with an environment like the Docker environment, and I think this is true for Kubernetes or Rancher or any of the other systems management models around containers, is that you can also describe not just a single container, but a multi-container entity. And so in his demonstration, he walked through using the Docker Compose modeling to both create a test environment, modify and verify that the test results were appropriate, and then use the Jenkins pipeline as a part of the continuous integration process to then commit code if the tests passed. So really the benefit of the container was a better way of bundling the application, the ability to run that entire test pipeline on your laptop and then push it into production test as well. All those things were very powerful components of his discovery. The other DevOps talk that I thought was interesting was looking at specifically feature flags. And now this is a concept that has come out of this rapid iteration process that has some real benefits. The biggest benefit is that with feature flags, you basically embed in your code on-off switches for different features. So when you create a new feature, you basically wrap that feature in an on-off switch. And you can then expose that through an API or even just in the configuration for the code. So the number of ways that you can actually trigger those flags. It's nice if they're API exposed. One of the benefits is that your operations team can actually then flip a feature on or off if that feature happens to be broken. So you've released a new feature, you wrap it in a flag, and when you go into production, you roll that code out into production. If that feature breaks the system, you can disable that feature. And the idea is that since you've wrapped this new code in that flag and that basically that toggle switch, you actually limit the destruction to your environment that would create. So a very powerful component. Her talk was actually beyond even that. So there's the functionality and how important that is. But her point was that this now can actually map into the product development lifecycle and even the product management lifecycle. Now you can give product managers, not just ops teams, access to these sorts of flags. Roll the feature out for a specific customer or a specific group of customers instead of for everybody. It gives you the chance to do a beta program for new features with the same production code base, so you don't have to suddenly have multiple systems running around. Her point really was that this concept can really change how applications are deployed. So another part of the dev plus ops makes for a better worldview kind of environment. So Defrag was a great conference. It's really sad that it's going to be gone, except for the fact that I think this same content ends up in Glue anyway. The Glue conference is held in May. I believe it'll also be in the Denver area. A much larger conference, and I think it will have more of this flavor, not just the technology, but how it impacts the environment around it. So really a great session. I managed to get out just as the snow was starting to pick up. I don't know if it got worse. I mean, there was certainly some snow on the ground when we finally took off 5 hours after we were supposed to. But it was really a great trip and a great conference, and I really appreciated the opportunity to go and see what everybody had to talk about.